The Toys R Us lawsuit. Rated R for strong language, intense violence throughout, blood and gore, strong sexual content, nudity. Oh, this sounds good. A Dark Angels of Death 14 production. Chapter 1. Permission Slips. Mrs. Paulino is walking into court and sat down in her seat. "You may stand and tell us your story, Mrs. Paulino," said the judge. Then Mrs. Paulino got up and said, "Thank you, Your Honor. It all started on my English class field trip to Toys R Us." "Okay, everyone, tomorrow we're going on a field trip to Toys R Us," said Mrs. Paulino. The whole class started screaming and cheering. Mrs. Paulino then handed out all the permission slips, and she told the class that her 5th period class is also coming. The next day, everyone in Mrs. Paulino's 4th period class brought their permission slip, but only Dylan and her 5th period class brought their permission slip. Mrs. Paulino was furious with her 5th period class, so she had them shipped to Iraq to be executed, except for Dylan, who brought his permission slip. The buses finally came to school and everyone got on. On the way to Toys R Us, we stopped at a Chuck E. Cheese, but forgot Etzo, who drowned and died because there was thug babies jumping on him in the ball pit and beating him with their diapers full of bricks. Everyone on the bus was singing while Etzo was being beaten and drowned by thug babies. Back at Chuck E. Cheese, Mrs. Paulino, who was driving, stopped at a gas station, but accidentally ran over an old lady and hit her car in the gas station parking lot, but didn't notice it. Mrs. Paulino then opened the door to let us buy snacks while she paid for the gas, but didn't notice that I stole her credit card and bought a lot of stuff with it. Everyone got back in with chips and soda while I had lots of energy drinks, chips, and Playboy. Mrs. Paulino saw all the stuff that I had and asked how could I afford all that stuff. I replied saying that I used my allowance and said, "Want some Cheetos?" She took a bag of Cheetos from me, then started driving again. After a week of driving, we finally made it to Toys R Us. Chapter 2. Toys R Us. Everyone was so excited, and this Toys R Us even had a real giraffe instead of a statue. Rainy started petting it, but it bit his stomach open and slurped his intestines and entrails. While Randy was screaming, no one noticed because they were too busy playing with toys, and Mrs. Paulino was riding the merry-go-round quarter machine ride. Arvin saw this really beautiful girl. They started talking for a while, then started Frenching for an hour. The girl said that she was a vampire, then cut Arvin's throat open with her teeth, then started slurping his blood through his arteries like a slushie. Chad and Trevor were racing on the toy cars that ran on batteries. When Mrs. Paulino saw this, she told them that the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and that they had to slow down, but didn't listen. They did a very hard, sharp turn, but crashed into each other, which caused them to fly through their windshields and smack heads, which caused their head to crack open and their brains splattered. Their car also flipped on their body and had a gas leak, which caused a huge explosion, which caused everyone to think that it was 9/11 all over again. Mrs. Paulino then said, "Told you so," then walked away. Chapter 4. Barbie Massacres and Lawsuits. All the girls are together having fun by playing Barbies and tea parties. Everything was going good until Ashley lost her temper at Chelsea. Ashley grabbed all of her Barbies and threw them like ninja stars and cut through their bodies. She felt happy after her revenge, but then she lost her temper again after getting blood on her new shirt. Her face was so red and her head then just blew up. And that is what happened, Your Honor," said Mrs. Paulino. Mrs. Paulino then won the lawsuit against Toys R Us and got billions of dollars and started dancing on everyone's graves. But then remember that she left Dylan. When Mrs. Paulino finally got to Toys R Us, she saw Dylan hanged by a bike chain. Mrs. Paulino was shocked, but then said, "At least I have my money." Then she started kissing a wad of cash. She turned around and saw Jonathan, but then a eagle swooped down and flew away with Jonathan. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment. Dark Angel of Death 14 production.